Hi, everyone. Just in case we are not heading to the old city today, we have traveled the old city so many times within the city walls, outside of the city walls, just on the city walls, which is the Ramparts Walk. So we know that all the way around. I would say inside out, or at least as much as possible, of course. And we are going to be spending time, well, let's say just for us to understand. You can see the Zion Gate. That's actually, this is the closest entrance to the Jewish quarter from, let's say, from the western side of the old city. Or you could also enter the Jewish quarter through the Dung Gate. My favorite is the Zion Gate because the Zion Gate actually takes you to Mount Zion. And this area south of Mount Zion, actually, this is exactly where the Hinnom Valley lies. So let's say we're going to be overlooking Mount Zion all the time, but we are not there just yet. First, we need to go through hell. Yes. Well, but again, this hell, as of today, is a little different from what we think of hell. Just for a little I would say a little more detailed outline that we have here. So about well 3 weeks ago, we explored the Tower of David, right? We've explored the Citadel, the Palace of Herod the Great. We walked on the ramparts. We walked on the section of the walls from Jaffa Gate towards the Zion Gate. And we could actually see a little bit of the Hinnom Valley. But today we are on completely opposite side. We're going to be looking at the edges of the southwestern edge of the old city, and also the Mount Zion, of course, which we will see. Also, as a little reminder, last week we explored the so-called Bible Hill, right? We explored the St. Andrew's Church, the Scottish Memorial Church. And from there on, we went a little bit down towards the edge of the Hinnom Valley. So the Hinnom Valley basically, well, the St. Andrew's Church basically overlooks the Hinnom Valley. And also we have this map for us also to understand where Hinnom Valley lies, where the Mount Zion is, and how close Mount Zion is towards the old city. I guess from here you can see it very well. Also on this layout, we see a lot of dots. So actually the dots are burial caves. I think this already it's giving me a little more of this hell vibe because the number of burial caves there is, I would say, really scary. So there's a reason for it. I think it all's just in the name. So why Hinnom Valley? Actually, well, Hinnom Valley, the original name is the Gaben Hinnom. Well, it's the Hinnom as it is. We're not really sure what it means. It's probably the last name. So it's the Valley of the Sons of Hinnom. And Gaben Hinnom. Probably a family that had lived in the valley for some time. We're not entirely sure, but in the books of Jeremiah, in the book of Jeremiah, this area is referred to as the Topheth. Well, the people of Judah have done evil in my sight, Jeremiah wrote. They have built the high places of Topheth in the valley of Ben Hinnom to burn their sons and daughters in the fire. I mean, just as it is, it's already too intimidating and really, really creepy. So let's read a little bit more of that. So the Valley of Slaughter, it's also as it's referred to in Jeremiah 7, verse 31. They have built the high places of Topheth in the Valley of Ben Hinnom to burn their sons and daughters in the fire, something I did not command, nor did it enter my mind. So beware, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when people will no longer call it Topheth or the Valley of Ben Hinnom, but the Valley of Slaughter, for they will bury the dead in the Topheth until it's no more room. What is Jeremiah referring to? Well, Jeremiah is the prophet foresaw the destruction of Jerusalem, the destruction of the temple. And well, he actually had a lot of prophecies for the people, but the people at that time, the people of Judah, right? There was a lot of conflicts. There was a crisis within, let's say, the Jewish community. It was the times when, well, as you know, Jerusalem, um, the let's say it before the Jews came, it was inhabited by the Canaanite people, the pagans, well, let's say groups of people, so to speak, the pagans. And for a long time, they actually coexisted. The city of David, the first Jerusalem, that was the first plot of land that was purchased by, well, that was conquered by King David, and some other territories later on would be purchased. Well, that used to be the Jebusite territory. So they actually coexisted for a long time, the pagans and the Jews. And those were completely, well, the Canaanites and the Jews were completely different mindsets. And there was, of course, a lot of temptation for the Jewish people to give in and start practicing a lot of pagan, well, let's say, start using a lot of pagan practices. And uh, well, worship multiple gods, and also get engaged in all sorts of pagan rituals and practices and sacrifice, including the sacrifice of their own children. And according to Jeremiah, that's exactly that sacrifice would be carried out, and then the bodies would be buried there, of course. And there's nothing more impure for a Jewish person than the dead body, the dead flesh. So that's basically pretty much explains why there are so many burial caves in the Hinnom Valley. And this is the St. Andrew's Church where we started the previous tour, and it rests on the Bible Hill, and the building itself rests on the bedrock. And once and that hill, one side of that hill is called Ket of Hinnom, which means the shoulder of Hinnom Valley, because this is exactly the shoulder of the Hinnom Valley, where we have absolutely mind-blowing archaeology. Well, for example, these are the outline of a Byzantine period church, and from there we are overlooking the Roman period burial caves. Later on, we will see what kind of findings were made there. Of course, the bodies were not there because the area had been looted multiple times over the centuries. And also, if we just go a little bit further down, we will see another burial. Well, several more burial caves. And the most important for us is definitely the burial cave number 24, which goes back to the first temple period. We're talking 7th century BCE, maybe 8th century BCE. And in burial cave 24, a very important archaeological finding was made. Just a little reminder. So here you see a little bit of the round-shaped niches on the stone. Well, those were the niches for heads of the deceased. It used to be a cave. It used to be within the cave, inside the cave, but that rock collapsed, and that's just what we see now. So there was discovered the famous silver scrolls, which is up until today the oldest written monument of the Jewish faith. It was discovered during the, let's say, excavation that were carried out by Dr. Gabi Barkai. He passed away earlier this year only, and he contributed immensely to, let's say, to the world of archaeology, not just Israeli archaeology, but in general, I would say world archaeology. And it was discovered by chance. I shared the story with you, and that is just one of gazillion of other discoveries made by Gabi Berkai. But that wasn't even him. It was just a student on his tour, a boy of the 13-year-old boy that was taken on a tour with his class to the excavations. Well, and it was discovered in this very burial cave. So it was just discovered as a small piece of something, some sort of a metal, all charred, and it was absolutely impossible to see what is in there. So it took them some time, but then they were able to unroll it, and they were able to realize they actually were made from silver. So the silver scrolls, that's what they look like. They are now exhibited in Israel Museum in Jerusalem. And what's written there, which is in Proto-Hebrew, well, Old Hebrew, let's put it this way, it's just the blessings that, as we understand now, were part of the burial practice during the First Temple period. As you probably remember from my previous tours, the burial practices evolutionized, they changed over the years. And in the first temple period, well, it the burial the caves were the caves the bodies were just placed in the caves with special niches to the head, and then a year later, family would come and just collect the bones and place them in a special niche. In the second temple period, things are a little different. We'll talk about it as the story goes, because well, I hope you understand that since we're traveling the hell, well, there are going to be a lot of other burial caves for us. Speaking of the findings that were made in Ket of Hinnom, well, we need to go to Menachem Begin Center, named after the Prime Minister of Israel, Menachem Begin. In the Begin Center, there is a little exhibition of the findings that were made both in the Roman period caves, in the First Temple period caves, and it's not the bodies. So the caves had already been looted probably centuries before. But the silver scrolls, however, that two silver scrolls, however, survived because they were just buried by a big piece of the rock that collapsed at some point. But they were discovered the glass tubes. This is glass. And also they were discovered a lot of different vessels well, the archaeologists were able to date. And so again, we know that the findings actually encompass the period of about 7 or 8, 900 years. And then we know of that on the site that the Byzantine period church used to be located just to the side from the burial place. And well, actually, this is the actual site of the silver scrolls. They're pretty small, and this is just photographs, very simple. And yeah, so well, it's taken them a while, for a long time actually, before they got down to, like, cleaning it and rolling it. They didn't even know it was made from silver. Yeah, so we're already overlooking Mount Zion, and a little bit to the side, there are already the walls of the old city, the western wall, not of the Temple Mount, right, but of the old city itself. And right beneath us is the Hinnom Valley and the Nile Bridge. So the Nile Bridge is one of the oldest bridges over the Hinnom Valley from the Hebron Road. So we are overlooking the Hebron Road, and underneath is the Hinnom Valley. Hebron Road, here it is one of the oldest roads, of course, in the world, maybe. I would put it this way. And yeah, so the views here are absolutely breathtaking. Mount Zion over there. So speaking of the last time, we also had a little discussion, a little talk about this building over there. This building played a very important role in the 1948 war. However, originally that building was it was constructed in 1880s, and it was built as the ophthalmic hospital, St. John's Ophthalmic Hospital. It was built by the British to commission of Queen Victoria. And there was a reason why the ophthalmic hospital was opened exactly in that area, because across the Hinnom Valley and across the Mount Zion, so let's say if we just kind of draw the imaginary line across the valley and the Mount Zion, we find ourselves in the old city, and somewhere very, let's say, around the areas of the so-called pools of Siloam, which, as if you remember from my tours on the Jesus ministry in the Holy Land, so Pool of Siloam, which name also might ring a bell to you from the New Testament. Well, this is actually the place where we believe that Jesus performed one of his miracles. That is, he cured the blind man. And because of that, because everything about the Holy Land is either geopolitical or has religious grounds and adherence to different traditions of different confessions and religions. So that's the reason why the British were just decided to open the ophthalmic hospital on that side. Well, it's just one of the explanations, which seems pretty logical to me. The pools of Siloam, just to remind you what it looks like, originally, it's located in the village of Silwan. Part of it was located in the Arab village of Silwan, just outside of just really at the edges of the old city. And further down, there were made more discoveries, and actually a very big, very, very big territory of what uh, allegedly, well, most likely used to be a big purification bath just before entering the old city and the Temple Mount. And it is believed that, well, every Jew that was just about to visit the Temple Mount absolutely had to purify themselves in this giant big pool used as a mikveh, spiritual purification bath. So we believe that that miracle of curing the blind happened there. So, but this building is also important for us because it from this building was thrown a little cable, just cable road, and a small cable car was um, transferring supplies to the army to the IDF during the 1948 war, and a section of this building still has a museum of how everything worked, because the rest of the territory, the old city, was under the Jordanian occupation, or under the Jordanian control, and also Hinnom Valley was heavily controlled and quite dangerous to walk in. But Mount Zion was the only stronghold of the army of Israel, and it was basically occupied. So it needed supplies, ammunition, and that's how it was supplied there. And right now, this building was enlarged, extended, and it's now the Mount Zion Hotel. But a small section of it was preserved, and it's a museum, so one can actually come and see what it looked like and how that cable car actually worked. But so the Hinnom Valley has played a very important role in the history of this land at different periods, starting from the First Temple period up until today. So now we're actually going to explore it. So I think this has been a good enough refresher for everyone, and especially for those who missed the previous tour, since all these tours are connected. Just as we are about to set out for the walk, there is a monument, Yad LeShalom monument, the monument to peace by Yigal Tumarkin, and well, this is one of the prominent sculptors and artists of the 20th century. He left great legacy, a lot of interesting monuments, really modernist style. And this monument, it exactly commemorates what happened during the 1948 war, and it has pieces of ammunition, and it has pieces of the tools and the details, like the spinners and the handles, all for the cable car, and many other things. Yeah, so it's a memorial to war, because war is just there. Is always there in the Middle East. What can I say here? And now we are walking down the bridge. However, we are not going just to Mount Zion. We are going to explore hell first of all. So before you reach Zion, you need to go through hell. You need to deserve your way to Zion, sort of. But obviously, you may remember that the Mount Zion, the way we know today, it's actually not the Zion as it is understood in the Old Testament, because we actually don't know what exactly Zion was, right? But since this term Zionism is so um, often used today, I think it's, it needs a little, just a little explanation here. Now the term Zionism is very derogatory again, which is completely, twisted understanding. Basically, Zion means, well, the place designed, for Jews to live. And this movement, Zionism, was born at the end of the 19th century when Jews all around the diaspora um, well, experienced pogroms, and they just tried to find a quiet and safe place to live. And this was the time when the Ottoman Empire that had the lands under their control is also, as I'm saying, that you may just read a little information about the area we're going to explore now, part of it. And well, at that time, just conveniently, the Ottoman Empire opened its doors and allowed the purchase of lands for Christian communities, Muslim communities, well, from around the world, and the Jewish communities. So this is where a lot of Jews went, but not only to the Holy Land, but also there. So it was called Zionism. Just the strive of the people to return to their historic motherland by purchasing the land. Nobody invaded, but so now it is used as a very derogatory term, but okay, that's geopolitics. Let's move on. So, but the Mount Zion, the way we know it today, is actually a tradition uh, from the Crusader period, because when the Crusaders came to Jerusalem in 1099, well, they thought that that mountain was Mount Zion, but actually it was not. It was just a mountain because it's outside of the old city. Well, but nevertheless, and now we are walking. We're already down below. I'm kind of cutting out unnecessary and boring moments, and I'm just doing all the walk. I did all the walk. I've done it probably a gazillion of times, and we're just going to see the highlights of it. By the way, this is all. It's bedrock, and it's actually used for rock climbing. There are several. Well, mountain climbing, well, let's say alpinism schools, so to speak, and this is one of the their venues where they actually practice rock climbing. I'm not sure if you could see that, but there were some marks, that are used. It's also part of the so-called Shvil Israel, one of the hiking trails across the entire country. It's a popular area for hiking, but again, well, why is it popular for hiking, Anna? Isn't it hell? Isn't it supposed to be dangerous? A lot of ghosts, a lot of dead bodies and burial caves. Well, yes and no, but it's way more than just that. So what's going on here? Well, you also, well, I post there for a second, you could see the information, right? So that's kind of the Jerusalem Walls National Park. It's a huge park that encompasses the walls of Jerusalem, the neighboring territories, the neighboring valleys, and everything around it. So it's initiative of um, Israel Antiquities Authority and several other organizations to preserve the surroundings, the area of around Jerusalem. And yes, there are a lot of burial caves, and they're like all over the place, and nobody really pays attention to them. They're all empty. They all had been looted centuries ago, probably even thousands of years ago, and probably multiple times. They are everywhere in the Hinnom Valley. And many of them actually can be, well, if they're not dangerous, because obviously they are carefully inspected, but yes, they can be visited or at least approached. And there's one particular burial cave that I am taking you to. Well, it's closed, but you can go up. So somebody chiseled out the steps a couple of thousands of years ago, and you can still walk these steps. And this is huge, the gigantic burial cave for probably two or three people. And nobody really knows, nobody can really date it because no organic material was found, and because the carbon 14 dating test that only works with organics, so nothing was found. So we maybe, just maybe, this is the maybe this is the late Second Temple period, or probably well Roman period, or maybe early Byzantine. So let's say, uh, give or take, first century BCE up to, let's say, fourth century Common Era. That's kind of uh, the the time range that we're given. Not really, not so accurate, but that is what we have. And remember, we spoke about the differences. I mentioned that I would be talking about the differences in burial practices. For example, in the Second Temple period, we're talking here, let's say, from the 6th century BCE to the 1st century Common Era. That's called the Second Temple period. Well, the especially closer to the end of the Second Temple period, the bodies would be, again, the bodies of the deceased would be wrapped up in a piece of clothing, and then they would be left in the cave to disintegrate, to rot. And after a year, there only would be bones left. The bones would be collected and placed in a special ossuary, and there are believed to be ossuaries just a little bit to the right. So no ossuaries were found, however, in this cave, because they had been looted. So we don't really know. There were also other areas depending on the regions, because, for example, in the north of the country, in the Galilee, a lot of Jews actually were influenced by, well, a lot of Jews in the end, say at the end of the Second Temple period, a lot of Jews were influenced by Hellenistic culture, and a lot of Jewish burials were discovered with sarcophagi, which is a Roman way. But well, it depends. It wasn't just as homogeneous and clear cut as we want it to be, but yeah, that's how it was. So this is the area far from the tourist trails, but that's just well, imagine just a nice walk. You're about to hike in a lovely, green area. Oh, let's just drop by a burial cave. There are gazillions of them in the Hinnom Valley. But here, what it gets quite unexpected. So imagine walking through hell, and the hell looks so welcoming. This particular video was filmed in August last year, which is the hottest month. Hi, Dorley. Just hang in there several more weeks, and then it's gonna get a little easier. It was very hot. Usually around Israel in August, the land looks barren, burned by the sun. But here, well, the something that actually the picture is very different. We have the kind of a park, a public park, free of charge, where Israel Antiquities authorities and also national park authorities have created the area for family outings, for family activities, all around the ancient agricultural practices. So it's kind of the farm valley in hell. Yes, we're still in the valley, because you may have noticed we were going down and down and down, and now we are walking in the valley well, um, through a farm. Let's say it's the recreation of different farm activities that were spread, all around the Judea, the land of Israel, and it's free of charge, and it's modern. But well, let's say it's a recreation, so of course it is comfortable. It is modern, and in the caves you can actually even see the electric sockets, and you can charge your phone just next to a bedrock. Yeah, that's just how it's done. For example, one of the activities is you see here a wine press, and actually anyone, obviously it has to be arranged in advance, but a family can come and say, we want a tour of, say, agriculture in Israel. and the family comes, and then headed by the tour guide, they can engage in all sorts of activities like practicing what it's like to make wine, because wine and grapes is one of the grapes is one of the special species, right? One of the fundamental species that are core, let's say, of the Jewish life, and wine are used in so many rituals and practices for every Shabbat, for Pesach. Well, it's just the essential part of, not just it's not just cuisine; it's like life, the Jewish life. So God actually means press, and here anyone can try to make wine. But we will see a lot more authentic, locations. This I think I filmed 2 years ago, around October, November, I think November, and here we see water. So water in Israel in general is a very interesting topic because there's always not enough of water, and every drop of water counted, every drop of water was saved. Uh, we have seen dozens and dozens of cisterns, hundreds of cisterns around the old city, within the old city, and but you still need water for agriculture. So there were kind of um, multiple techniques that were developed in just watering and irrigation of agriculture, and there was not far from, actually in the Hinnom Valley, not far from there is a system of aqueducts that were discovered, different aqueducts that brought water to Jerusalem because it was absolutely special. It was absolutely essential, and also all around Jerusalem used for agriculture to supply the old city, of course. Or, and then, of course, wheat, barley, right? Uh, this was one of the essential crops. So the bread that sustains the human heart, as it says, in Psalms. So of course you could find threshing floors, the elements of the threshing floors all around different neighborhoods everywhere because bread was absolutely essential. And well, you can we can also I can also read it to you. A threshing floor was where the crops harvested from nearby fields were taken in order to separate the grain from the chaff and straw. So we could see them. A lot of them were discovered in the neighboring areas, and here they also recreate the agricultural lands. I think these are zucchinis. I'm not sure. I don't remember. So, but also one can grow tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, right? And probably, I think it's a zucchini, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know, but it's just all of the flowers of it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a zucchini, of course, and the threshing floor. So that's the threshing floor. So in between these two stone wheels, the grains were placed, and then they would be going the opposite directions, threshing, the crops and separating the chaff. So that's just how it worked. And then the wind and then the flour was made. Or they were also found presses like this, uh, olive presses, because olives is just one of those species that are absolutely essential. I would say not just to the Jewish people, but probably the entire Middle East, and not only just the Middle East. Olives are grown all around Israel, and olive oil was used in every, I would say, in every part of life, from kitchen, medicine, cosmetics, to different ritual practices, of course, lighting the menorah and many other things. Just, well, we all remember the holiday of Hanukkah, right? The miracle of light. So the olive oil was used to light the menorah in the temple. So the olive oils, sorry, olive presses driven. Well, there were actually two techniques, but so the first one we saw, let me go back a little bit. It was driven usually by an animal, such as a donkey, and the donkey would walk and move the bar of the press, and that actually this tradition is throughout the Middle East. Or there was also another press that crushed the seeds that are so rich in oils, the olive press, oil that makes a face shine also from the Psalms. So one of these absolute, basic crop in antiquity. So the oil was used for food, lighting, skincare, and more. Absolutely. So lighting, yes, just in general, the olive oil lamps are found in crazy volumes all around the Middle East. Of course, they worked with the olive oil. So the it's just the installation doesn't mean that everything that we see was found here. Of course not. It's just the recreation. However, the threshing floor that we saw, they were found not far from here. Mm, the olive press was also found not far from here, but everything was just placed in one place to show how everything functioned, how farming, how agriculture was carried out in the land. Yes, so here we see a little zoo in a way, so you can see animals that usually back then were at the farms. Donkeys, of course, donkeys was the means of transport and also delivery of goods, and they were employed in exactly, well, olive press. I think it was November. I'm not sure. It was rams, sheep. This was very it was very obvious, I would say. Of course, no pigs. Of course, however, under the Romans, during the Roman period, uh, this is when actually pigs come into come into the picture, because the Romans consumed a lot of pork, and the it's actually one of the means to identify what kind of settlement a certain area was. For example, the areas where we believe Roman legions used to be located. Well, we're talking the first century BCE, throughout the first century, actually the first century Common Era, and then throughout, and actually basically up until the fourth century Common Era. So there were several Roman legions how quartered in and around Jerusalem and several other areas. So, and in these areas, exactly, this is where we find a lot of pork bones. But this has nothing to do, obviously, with this site. This is just a nice area, kind of a chill out zone. It's designed a little bit like the Bedouin tent, just a little bit, and some chicken, of course, some aviaries. I think there was also I saw a small aviary, but I didn't see it last time when I filmed it, so I don't know what happened to it. Maybe it's just closed, or they were renovating it or something. Yeah, and camels, of course, uh, we were not allowed to feed them. I think he was smiling at me. Probably not. Probably not, but I like that he was smiling at me and not going to spit at me. Anyway, so we now need to go up because we need to we need to take, the we need to go to the bridge, but there is this little tower. Actually, this is the recreation of a watchtower. There had been a watchtower, but they turned it into a nice area where different cooking classes can be run. Well, again, it like all has to be arranged in advance. Well, the cooking classes, they are going to charge you something. In general, this park is open. Anyone can just walk there with free of charge. If you need an activity, you need to arrange it, and for some activities you need to pay. For some you don't. I have never taken any activity there, but I so local guides running tours. So I just filmed it, and surprise, surprise. By the way, that's the olive trees all around us, and just behind this, the base of the watchtower, there is another burial cave, and right next to it, there is a lovely sofa. What do you say? Overlooking the valley. Yeah, that's a burial cave. Not much can be found. No idea to which period it goes, but yeah, just another burial cave. Why not? And now we need to go up. We need to go up because we need to see the bridge, the suspension bridge. This one. So this is the bridge that opened like in 20 end of 2023, I believe. So it was already after I left Israel, and that's the longest suspension bridge at this point in Israel, in Jerusalem. And this, it's, well, we do it in meters, and I'm going to need your help here. I'm absolutely hopeless with the, not translation, but with conversions. So, but it's 202 meters long, and it's elegant. It looks super lightweight. And it's a quick way, it's a quick way to connect to Mount Zion without having to go down the valley and then up the hill, which is doable. But imagine how incredibly difficult it was, and how many people actually tried to not to go down the Hinnom Valley because of all the burial cave, because of all the practices, and just really, really bad reputation of the entire area. Just imagine. And people only dreamt back then. I'm sure they dreamt they could have a bridge, but they didn't. And just imagine how much time it actually must have took people to go from the Bible Hill, or well, from the edge, from the shoulders of the Hinnom Valley to Mount Zion, or probably the old city just a little head over there and to the right. So the bridge is free. You can walk into it 24/7. It usually gets pretty windy there. Well, depending on the season, but the bridge moves. It even makes a sound. It's kind of, we like to say it's kind of sings. The bridge actually sings in the wind. So for those who are a little bit afraid of heights, probably not a good idea to walk it. I'm not really a big fan of heights, but it was okay. Like, it's totally safe. It's really fun, but kids like to jump on it like crazy. So maybe it's not really a good idea if you know heights not exactly of your cup of tea, not just strong as you. I don't know. But in general, the bridge is beautiful. However, today we are not going to cross the bridge. We're just going to step on the bridge a little bit. You see, it's narrow. It's actually safe. It's bars are, well, I mean, it's all really it's all comfortable. You can't really fall out, and it just gives you this sweeping views of the valley, of the farm, uh, and the Hebron Road, and you can see bits of the old city. If you go a little up and to the right, you can see the walls of the old city, Mount Zion. with the Mission Abbey, and it's just a nice place where you can take selfies. However, tonight, we are not going to cross this. We're not going to walk on the bridge. Why? Because there is one more place I am going to take you, which is also sounds horrible. It's like really, if there is a place, if there has to be a place, for this, for this. This should be the Hinnom Valley. It should be the hell. The place is called the Field of Blood, Akaldama. And the Field of Blood is the place associated, again, with all those pagan practices, but mainly, especially in the New Testament, it's associated with Judas and his 30 pieces of silver and his demise. And also, the place called the Fields of Blood is associated with the Crusader burial place, especially for those who died from contagious diseases. So we're going to see that. We're going to walk that next Sunday, and then we're going to walk the bridge, and then we're going to explore a little bit of the Mount Zion, because there are many more, interesting places to explore. And yeah, some more burial caves, of course, along the way, because it's fun, right? It's fun, popping by burial caves. What could be more fun? I don't know. Yeah. So, my dear friends, hi to those who joined us a little after we started. Let me just put the chat back on. Yeah, here we are. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Here on the chat, I'm sharing once again the links. So as you know, I am pretty diverse. I have my fingers in many pies. So tomorrow I'm taking you on a live walk in Batumi, the town by the Black Sea in Georgia. On Wednesday, we're going to be singing with the family. And yes, I'm going to be singing too. Don't expect too much of me though, but yeah, I'm going to be singing as well. And I will be scheduling some more tours for the upcoming weekend, but so far we're going to St. Petersburg, to the home for the last Russian Emperor, Nicholas II, and also, hold on a second, he's back. I saw this bot and I got rid of him, but he's back. Okay, whatever. Goodbye. It's usually really a nuisance. Not really, just no. At least it's not really insulting us, right? So it just babbles about stuff. It's kind of innocent bot, but I still prefer not to have it. Yeah, but it keeps coming back. So you see, I have a really loyal bot. Yeah. So what was it talking about? Yeah, I'm taking you to St. Petersburg, to the home of the last Russian Emperor Nicholas II, and I'm taking you to Mount Zion and a little bit of hell, a little bit filled of blood, how welcoming, and then Mount Zion, and then just a little bit more of Jerusalem. So that's the plan. And I will be scheduling also very personal one-off experience that deals with the cooking and the historic location and the family experience. I like, just cooking things up. So yeah, that's basically the plan. Hi, Ashford, and thank you so much for joining. You have a fan bot. Yeah, I have a fan bot, Albie. Exactly. I have a fan bot. I need to monetize it somehow. I don't know how I can do that. I wish that fan bot could tip me. That would be amazing. Yeah. Natalie, I'm glad you're still here. So internet seems to be working for you. So that's great. Seems to be working for me. I haven't even seen any notifications, with regards to my connection being patchy or whatever. So I think I've been really lucky today. Natasha, thank you so much. You take us to the most incredible places. Natasha says, "Oh, thank you so much. Learning about the farming and agriculture brings it to life." Well, actually putting this together, creating this farm, I think it's just really probably the best way to introduce families, children to all these ancient practices and how we're still so much dependent. Modern agriculture depends so much on these old practices. I think it's just amazing. Thank you, Natalie. So, my dear friends, thank you so much for joining me. I would appreciate your support. Unlike this idiotic fan bot, you can support me either by sending a PayPal donation or buying me a coffee. Yes, Dorley, exactly. So the Jerusalem has so many layers, and today we've just, managed to go through just a fraction of them. But yeah, we're almost at the bottom of the Hinnom Valley, almost. But you know, uh, mm, yes, the landscape and how the landscape actually worked, what it was used for over the centuries. That's pretty breathtaking. Yeah, I find it absolutely mind blowing. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm hoping to see you tomorrow and on Wednesday and the next weekend. Um, please make sure you subscribe to my newsletter where I update you about, well, everything that's going to happen over that next weekend. And of course, there are more than 1,000 videos available from my sponsors. Videos about Israel, Netherlands, St. Petersburg, Georgia, and several other locations. Yes, Dolly, see you tomorrow. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for everything and bye bye.